You're live. Well, good people, she made it with the shoes. If you're following the drama, she came through.
And actually, I tripled the I brought 3 shoes.
Bountiful.
Yes. Hello.
Hello and welcome.
I have questions for you.
Brilliant.
Well, I have a question.
I love questions.
I really love questions. And sometimes it's upsetting, I think, that people don't think that you want to hear questions, and so they don't ask it. But I would happily spend all my life answering questions. Yeah. Not that I know the answers, but just it's so fun.
So if people want to know about training, strength, ultra running, long walking, they should send your questions there.
Send me all the questions, please, and I'll have a great time answering them.
And me too. Hit me up.
So, what's new?
What's new? Nothing under the sun, is it? Human condition continues.
Yep.
Kids, hobbies, family, madness. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. How about you?
I don't think much, is you? No, I don't think. There's nothing to report, really. So I think we'll go straight into the question. So, what I thought would do, I personally I feel like I could sit down with you for 2 consecutive days and ask you questions. I'm very intrigued.
Well, I'm thinking the same thing about your running training, how to get stronger, etc. Anyway.
And I think the more I've involved myself in the Ishaya's ascension and meditation practice and all that, there's certain words I understand more. There's certain I feel like there's a bit more of a depth to it than just kind of general life enhancement. However, I feel like me a year ago would want to hear way more about general life enhancement. And the whole you're a monk, and I feel like I know so many monks now, and that's just very normal. But whenever I communicate that to anybody else, they're like, "Are you okay?"
you know? I know.
So I think what I'd love to do is to because I know you relatively well, and I know a lot of monks, and I know that you're just normal people. There's not you're not some strange thing that's in a cave that doesn't do these things. And I think we can get lost in the semantics of oh, I don't want to do that because it's associated with Yeah. So I just thought it would be good to almost make it clear who you are, what you do, and because I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's super important, and I think it's important to make sure that people don't get put off by certain ideals.
Yeah.
So
I remember once I was at a talk and I said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "Well, I saw that you're a monk, and so part of me said you could be really weird and this couldn't be for me, and the other part said, well, maybe he knows what he's doing." I was like, good point. Hopefully cool. I know what I'm doing. I certainly am weird, but anyway, so
that's cool. So I have a question that's been asked by somebody else, but I'm gonna take priority. What does it mean to be a monk?
Full stop? Question mark? Yeah.
Question mark.
Well, I guess it just means devoting my life to peace. Because I realized that without peace, then my life was a mess. I couldn't enjoy it. I couldn't really focus and follow through on the things that I wanted to do. So yeah, I recognized when I was calm, clear, centered, then everything came through easy.
I've just realized I didn't click record on my camera. Sorry. Oh, I did click record. Sorry, that was a mess. Continue.
Yeah.
I
think that I just recognized 2 modes of operation. One was chaotic and worried and frustrated and frantic, and the other was calm, considered, clear, effective, enjoyed. And that was really why I became a monk, because these monks that I met said, well, you don't have to give anything up except for your addictions and your habits and your limitations and your negativity. And I was like, that's a really good deal.
Mm.
So that's why I became an Ishaya monk as opposed to a monk that might run away from life, if you could call it running away. Yeah.
Mm.
Rather than giving up a whole lot of stuff like family and my kayaking and bits and bobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And with the kind of like single-pointed devotion to peace, how does that like actually look in terms of like, like in terms of your like day-to-day life? What comes from that?
What comes from that, or how does it look?
The first one.
How does it look?
How does it look?
Well, it really is an intention to make the foundation of my day about presence, and not only being in the moment, but being filled or aligned with my own presence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fascinating discussion, because people talk about mindfulness in terms of being, well, kind of like aware of your senses in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one part of it, but even more better. The more you do that, the more you find that there's a part of you that is so much more fascinating, so much more grounding, so much more energizing, so much more wise than just being aware of the conditions that are around you, where your body is physically located. Mm-hmm. And it's something we can kind of just point fingers at, but it is totally possible to experience. And that's anyway, that's what, for me, prioritizing peace. You could call it prioritizing presence, or prioritizing being the higher self, just allowing me to really live. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. And I think, like, and I noticed from my own personal like judgments that almost like a like, well, I guess it's okay for some people to experience peace and presence, and and like something I've been coming to really realize recently is this concept of like overwhelm, and how I think I was saying to you like the other month that this like realization that it's very little to do with how busy my life is, and and with a lot of the women that I coach, it's like the number one cause of stress. Like it's not really the lack of whatever that the thing that they're not doing but they think they should be doing. It's completely an inability to be present and to not control, but to bring your attention back. And I think kind of the idea of somebody being a monk without, I guess, an understanding that like you just live a completely normal life can definitely gave me this idea of like, okay, I could get a taste of that peace, that presence, whatever it is, but I couldn't live it because my life is, I've got these problems, I've got this business, these busynesses, whatever. But I think it's really fascinating that our experience of life and our experience of being at peace is really has very little to do with how that life looks.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is really interesting, because I think that's where we base all of our comparison on as to whether or not we can achieve something. Like especially like I think, we might all pursue different avenues, but the crux of it, everybody just wants to be content. Like, and we can pursue different things in the hope that it's going to make us feel like that, but contentment is what we as humans seek. And I think externally, it's really easy to, I guess, base judgment on, well, my life's not like that, therefore I can't. And I think the question that I had, which kind of leads into this, is slowing down isn't as easy as it might seem. Any advice on how to take the foot off the gas?
Yeah. Well, I think it's more an attitude than anything. Because you say people see their to-do list and go, "That's impossible. I can't. There's no gaps in my day." But I think we can be in the next moment before it actually arrives. We can be in the future well before it happens. And that is a way of stepping back and slowing down. Perhaps stepping back is a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But I think people, I like the way slowing down, because I think people recognize when they can recognize when they're rushing or being hasty. And changing and just consciously slowing down, taking it one step at a time, removes the haste or the rush or the franticness. And so that's a good strategy. But I think really it's an attitude of recognizing I'm trying to be there before it's arrived. Can I make the most of what's in front of me now? Can I be where my feet are, like you said? Can I be actually presence to the people, the things, the tasks that I'm doing while I'm getting to the future as soon as I can? Because when you're in the future and you're trying to get your kids to school, and after that you've got to go work, and then you've got 6 things that are contingent on the kids getting out the door in 30 seconds. If you're and of course they always act up, they can't get their shoes on, or they can't find them, they can't find their coat, and it causes you, because you're so focused on the fact that I'm going to be late and what will people think and it's going to be a disaster, that you're screaming at the kids before you know it. And it's predictable, so we start earlier. But B, at the time, if you just sat down with them and really stop trying to be in the future, but just worked on the problem at hand, the school shoes, finding the coat, then everybody relaxes and seems to get out the door quicker. And there's no yelling. None of that regret and feeling bad because you're so grouchy and grumpy and, oh, I shouldn't have done that again. So, yeah, it's not as easy as saying slow down, but it is as easy as saying take care. I guess that's another way of saying it. Step back, take care of the people, the things that are right in front of you. The beauty of mindfulness means it will be quick, but it just, the attitude is one of not pushing. So, yeah, I think that's mainly it. Is people think they carry their to-do lists and their future in their heads, and when we do that, we rush and we get hurried. We just slow down, go one moment at a time, one task, one thing. Shoes, car keys in the before you get there. It's so much easier. Yeah.
I really like that idea of I think you said it, of like that you're never given more than you can handle in one moment. I think that's really cool, because like when you are totally like just right here, like you can have all the millions of things to do, but when you're not engaging in the thinking about it, they're not a stress. It's not overwhelming, And I remember as well that the whole thing of like you can be rushing physically, but not mentally.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool, because like I remember when I was in Spain on the retreat, Jayat Sena, who we were washing up together, and she's a teacher, and she's like a rapid lady. Like she like runs about, is so fast and like forceful, and like everything's done perfectly quickly. It's really interesting because my kind of preconceived idea was like that you have to do everything peacefully and slow and
serene.
And I'm quite like her in that aspect of like I've always been quite just like if you see me in Tesco, I'm going really fast. And maybe it's because previously I was quite stressed, but even still, I get, it's just sometimes how I am. But I kind of associated that with not being peaceful or whatever. But it was just intriguing to see that you don't. And again, it comes back to the thing of like externally can be however you want, but internally it's a choice to be here and to be in the moment and at peace, regardless of how fast you need to do something, where you need to be, what you need to achieve.
I think that's what's behind questions like that, is that you say slow down, but that means being irresponsible. It means being late. It means that you don't care about the world and other people. And serenity, the whole serenity prayer, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. My kids just can't find their school shoes. Will that change by yelling at them? Probably not.
No.
Maybe maybe on hindsight, the night before we can get together and locate everything so everything's perfect and ready and we can just go without too many hitches. But at the time you find yourself in the trouble, can you change it? No. It's in fact, you just got to surrender to it and be with that trouble. And that gives you serenity. But it doesn't mean you don't care. It just means you're face to face with reality rather than what you think should be or should have happened. And how many times have I told you? But yeah, you're so right. You don't float around the world wrapped in cotton wool. You engage, but it's just a different way of engaging with all the events of life. So.
I think that's that was definitely one of my hang-ups initially about I guess like prioritizing to be present is like the almost irresponsibility of doing that. It's like, well, it almost feels like you're doing what the word is, you're fulfilling a duty by thinking about the things you have to do or because it's going to affect people, whatever. And it almost feels, I think it feels scary to let go of that. I think that's probably where for me, I think that was where a lot of the resistance was, to actually just, right, okay, I'm just going to 100% let go of the need to think about it and to just be here, because I guess it's like the word peace, like I think we associate that with a feeling of happiness or which I'm sure the two can coincide, but I think initially when you're going from, I guess, a position of habitually thinking about everything and that leading to a state of overwhelm and you're constantly in the future, it's probably not necessarily comfortable in the moment to actually, when you recognize that you're doing it, to stop. It probably feels a bit unsafe and a bit like, I think you said it once about like it feels like you're walking on thin ice, and from my experience it's definitely been like that. And I think initially I saw that as like an indication of, oh no, this is bad, I can't continue to choose to be here because it feels a bit scary, it doesn't feel good. But actually I'm learning that that's just, I guess it's like an evolution of you're just dropping off a really old habit. And I guess the more I guess I'm seeing that nothing falls apart when I choose to just be here, no matter how much I've got going on. And for me personally, it's been really cool to see like so I've always been really overwhelmed with everything because I'm constantly thinking about all the things I've got to do. It's been really cool to like this morning I noticed my mind, I was eating breakfast and it was this and this and this and then that the weekend, but it was cool to just like let it happen almost, and to not like dive in with it and then become stressed. So it's gaining that like just total freedom from it, which feels really cool. But I think initially there's definitely a period of time where like you expect it to feel peaceful and good, and it doesn't, and so you think, okay, I'll continue with my ways.
I see. Well, and people often ask me, do you plan? And of course I plan, but there's a time and a place. It's not over breakfast or when in mid-conversation with my wife. It's I'm fully devoted to my breakfast or I'm fully devoted to my wife, because I know I'll miss out. I'm completely absent if I'm thinking and with someone. And so as opposed to sitting down at breakfast thinking about all the things I have to do today, I'll really sit down and enjoy my breakfast and then sit down and write my to-do list. And chances are I've already written it. It's just my head wants to go over it. So I was like, no, it's all on paper. It's cool. Don't worry. And I think for me, it was making the most out of the moments before they slip by. Like, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but just early on, lots and lots of people, like friends and people I kind of would wave to in the street, just died. Hit by cars or cancer or kayaking, climbing, paragliding accidents, all this stuff. So in my early 20s, I recognized I didn't have a lot of time to get to the matter of living. And I think people will put off living because they got so much to do. Or maybe to put it a different way, we'll put off enjoying because there's so much to get done. I have to get this done, sorted. I have to fix this problem, and then I can relax and enjoy. I think a far better strategy, and really the only strategy that works, is to really enjoy what you're doing. And if that's working on a problem and just working it through with someone or on a piece of paper, then great. But don't mix things, because mixing never works. And it just means you miss out on both things. You half-ass the thinking through what the problems and what needs to be done, and you half-ass whatever else you're doing. If you're out for a walk or driving with your kids or trying to enjoy a meal, you're just not there for it. And I guess something my Ascension teacher once used to love to say, he had a t-shirt and he said, on it said, "Be whole-assed." And I was like, first time I saw it, I was like, what does that mean? He said, "Don't be half-assed." And I was like, very cool. And that's what I just recognized time was short and I didn't want to half-ass things. And the critical way I did that was just, as you said, have breakfast, but do a lot of useless thinking, or thinking that I'd already done, or trying to find a solution. Only if I think about it for the 1000th time, an answer, as opposed to really waiting and being patient and letting something evolve, letting the answer come. So yeah, it's not about not planning, but it really is about not letting my planning head run rampant over everything, which is a horror show for everybody concerned.
I think it's like for me personally, that the idea of where are you trying to get to is it's kind of blown my mind at the minute, because like I'm seeing so many patterns of rushing in really subtle ways, and like that planning thing. I think I mentioned before, probably this time last year, my life was so busy. I was doing so many things. I was training for my first ultra. Work was starting to really pick up. And in a relationship, there was so much going on, and reflecting on it, I wasn't actually. I missed it all. I wasn't actually there for any of it, and a real big moment for me was realizing that my whole life has been lived in my head. That I didn't even realize that I was doing it. And it's the whole thing of your body's one place, but your mind is another. And it's when you really grasp that, it's mind blowing that that we're actually not really living. We're so encapsulated in a future moment that's going to happen, and then when you get to that moment, then it's the next moment. You're kind of always one step ahead. And we wonder why we feel so stressed. And the concept of rushing is just, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. Where are we trying to get to? Because that whole if we're all wanting to just feel content and at peace and happy, the rushing and the not being here, it's almost like there's probably a subtle belief somewhere that, well, when I do this thing, then I'll be happy. And then it just on and on and on. And it's like the whole to-do list thing, you can never ever complete, you can't complete life. The amount of stuff we have going on as humans, we could all have a busyness contest and everybody would try and win, because we're all so busy. But it doesn't matter how busy you get or how not busy you are. If you're constantly busy in your head and you're never where you are, we're not alive.
But it's also like you said, it's ticking off my to-do list, so then I can be happier. But it's also, I think people, well, speak for myself, I used to feel great sense of responsibility. I couldn't be late because therefore someone would be unhappy. I couldn't. I had to push through with a certain thing because that would, make me look good, or it would fulfill my promise to someone. The classics: I've got to get to the kids on school on time, and I got to get to my job on time, because otherwise, what will people think? And that's is valid. You can take that too far, right? You can become so stressed about being so punctual, and yet life will life you. It will just throw all kinds of boomerangs in your way just to get just to mess with you. But I think the point really is that it's not what we do or what we have to do sometime in the future, but how we want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, slowing down just a touch, stepping back just a touch, really engaging with what is, means the how we are, how we show up in our life is so much better. We're so much more just proud of the person we are, rather than being frustrated and angry or regretful and grouchy and snappy all the time. So I think that ultimately is like the real thing. Even in the middle of your responsibilities, fulfilling them as best you can still enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true too. If you slow down, you often end up getting there faster because you create less accidents.
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen that person on the M1 just screaming up the inside lane, then braking, then indicating, and then just firing all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then you pull up to the services and they're just getting out of their car. They've gained 30 seconds. A whole lot of stress, a whole lot of mayhem, a whole lot of near accidents or actual accidents. And then the time that they actually got was minimal. And I think it's the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work in an office just doing data entry. And Monday, I started off just going as fast as I could, just banging in there. And by Friday, I was shattered. And I was like 4 weeks of that. And I was like, why am I doing this? I'm killing myself on a minimum wage job. A, it was kind of a competition to see how good I could do it. But B, I wanted to. And so Monday, I just started off at a really steady pace. I just down a peg or two. And by Friday, I was not only not exhausted, but I was still having fun. Just from backing off a little bit. So A, I wasn't killing myself over a minimum wage job, and B, it was much more sustainable. I could keep going forever. Have you seen those like when they put in a 4-day work week?
Yeah, they did it in like Sweden, don't they?
Yeah, in New Zealand they did a big study on it too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But people, so they got the same wage as if they worked 5 days, but just packed and they just cut off a day.
Mm-hmm.
Give you 4 days, same wage, do whatever you want on the 5th day. And people were not only less stressed, but they did, let me see, it was something like a third or 40% were more profitable, more stuff done.
Wow.
In less time.
Crazy.
Now I'm messing up these stats, so people you'd be yelling at me going, no, they didn't.
But it was significant.
There was significant improvements, not only in people's health, their enjoyment, their life satisfaction, but it was good for the business too. There was, definitely worthwhile,
mm-hmm.
which seems counterintuitive, right? We think, go fast, go home. but it appears to be slowing down doesn't slow you down.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole rabbit, this hair story, right, from kids. What?
Enlighten me.
It's the hare and the rabbit were having hair and the tortoise were having a running race,
right.
And of course the hare just bolts off, sprints for the end. The tortoise just plods along. Oh, I'll get there. The hare exhausts himself, tucks in behind a rock, goes, well, that tortoise will take forever. I'll have a little sleep. Has a little sleep because he's knackered. And the tortoise, she just keeps wandering, and wins the race. Slow and steady. And I remember that for the kid too. And I think, having the attitude of just keep going is so much easier, so much more fun than let's create mayhem and accidents on my way to push to get to somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Even though it feels
useful.
Yeah, it feels like, and I think it's part and part to do as well with how, like, I think it's really rewarded.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely a certain not group of people, that's the wrong word, but there's, like, I used to be a person who, like, if, like, my sister's a midwife and she works like 12-hour shifts, like running around like absolute mental, and like I'd be so in awe of like wow, like she's exhausted, and she'd tell me after, like, and she was not in awe of it. She hated it, didn't like the fact that she was so tired.
Yeah.
But she'd come back from a night shift and would be like absolutely dead, but part of me would be like, oh, I'd love that, like to just really like, you know. And so much of my mind was always like almost like a badge of honor to like the hardest worker, and it's probably come from like a need to prove or whatever, but like that was a huge part of my kind of growing up, was if I can't be like the best in terms of like, I'm not talented, I'm not necessarily the most intellectual, then I can work the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
And it can just go so far, you know, to the point of like, for me, it was like, if I don't feel absolutely exhausted by the end of the day, then it's been a bad day.
Been a waste of time.
And therefore I'm a bad human, and therefore I'm not good enough. And, you know, and it's really wild to think that like, that's how so many of us live. And, but more importantly, that we don't need to do that.
No.
And I think that's why, well, I know that's why I love ultra running, because the entire thing just embodies the fact to just slow down. You know, like, I think when you compare men and women who do ultra running, the majority of young men tend to, there's a way higher dropout rate of men versus women, because men tend to go into it with this kind of ego of go as fast as you can, I'm just going to push through it, and the body just like it physically cannot for such a distance. You'll die. Women tend to be a lot more, I guess, intuitive and a bit more second guessing themselves, and tend to go a lot slower, and therefore they tend to drop out less. But kind of men and women aside, I just think it's a lovely thing, because like you can't rush, you can't be frantic, you can't. The second you do any of that, either your body runs out, you stress too much, and therefore your body runs out, and it's all about just taking a step back. And I think, I guess as well, like on that, a question for you is probably like if I reflect to me maybe 8 months ago, a year ago, like I knew that it wasn't a good thing, you know. Although I participated in such behavior, like I knew that rushing, running around, like knackering myself, I knew it wasn't good, but I felt like I had to do it. And I felt like if I didn't do it, not good enough, and then all the scary feelings that come from it. And I know a lot of people who are like that. So I guess what's like the process in going about changing that?
How do you change it? Well, I think you got to get to a point where you want more from life. I think you do it for a while and go, this is horrible. And maybe people think, well, this is just the way life is, which is something. But then maybe you get a glimpse of, oh, maybe I can do it a different way. And if people are listening to this, they're probably already on that. Maybe I can do it a different way. Now there's always that degree of uncertainty. Oh, I'm not sure if I can. I'm not sure. Well, he doesn't understand. She doesn't understand life. But there's a pull there to have more than just rushing around. And maybe it's that regret of missing too many moments, or shouting too much, or just realizing what carnage you can create if you just fire off decisions and words without really considering them. And you know, the trouble of not being able to sleep at night, and how horrible that is, because your mind's so busy and you don't think you're good. You know, you're evaluating the day, going, oh man, I could have done that better. I think it just comes to a point where we go, oh, there must be more. I hope there's more, you know, and that's a wonderful thing, that doubt and confusion, because it really starts you looking for answers. And hopefully this is a bit of an answer for someone, is that you can slow down and still live the life that you want to live. Probably better, because you realize, you know, for me, working at the starter entry place, I was like, well, why am I doing this? Yeah, sure, I need some money, but what long-term stuff do I want to put in place so I can really do the things that I really want to do? And I was putting it off because that was scary, but slowing down meant I had the energy in the evenings and the weekends to really work on something and build it. So it was, I guess that's the process. Just realize there can be more.
I remember being a fair bit, I think I just dropped out of university. I was doing a neuroscience degree because it was prestigious, and you know, I was smart. And I dropped out because I was like, this is not for me. And I remember telling my dad and my sister that I dropped out and that I wanted to be a personal trainer and get into that. And I remember also kind of just saying, I'm just ranting about like life does not need to be like this. Yeah. And just this like, and I remember just feeling so angry at the world as to like I refused to hate my job, to live for the weekend, and because it's what my parents have done, it's what everyone around me. I've not seen anybody growing up. I never saw anybody do anything different. Yeah. It was just, you just have to do things, you know. And I just, I've always remember just this feeling of just like, no, like that cannot be why we're here. Is to just, and I remember it was either my dad or my sister said something along the lines of, that's just what life's like.
All right. Yeah.
And I remember just this outrage of just like, and also this kind of this pit of like despair of like, I don't want to live like that.
No way.
Yeah. And because I just like, what's the point? Like we're, so that eventually you get to a point later on in life and then you look back and you think, well, I don't remember any of that. Yeah. You know? And I think it's definitely difficult when you are surrounded by everybody else that does that. Yeah. Like I'm so grateful now that I have such an amazing social circle who have similar kind of desires to me. You know, there's an importance in being and not doing, and there's an importance in appreciating and enjoying rather than. And I think that's really important because I think when you're surrounded by people who are go,
yeah,
you can start to feel like you're the way you're doing it is wrong, yeah, or that what you want isn't possible.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it as well. It's like the possibility. Like it seems almost so. I remember this conversation I was having with them. It was like, you know, it was coming from a good place from them, but it was trying to be conveyed almost like to stop being so unrealistic.
Yeah.
You know, like life's just not like that. Yeah. Like you can be sold a dream, but it's just not how life is. Life is just like a bit shit, and you just have to do things. Yeah. And I think the longer you believe that, the more you live that. But when you can see the possibility actually that it doesn't need to be like that, and I think that's why I was so drawn to you and to the entire Ishaya Ascension, was because it was like, well, these people aren't doing that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think to see that in action is amazing because then it's real and then it's possible.
Yeah.
And you're just normal people. Yeah. You're a normal person, relatively.
Yeah.
And like you don't have to do what the rest of the world does, and I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, it is. You know, the more I do this, the more I see there is nothing with a capital T true. We have ways of living that we agree upon, and part of, like you're saying, is we just, this is the way it is. Okay, I don't particularly like it, but it must be the case because it's the way everyone around me is doing it. But if you change your mind, if you can change your attitude or your outlook, if you can dream a little dream, then you keep doing that, and you can create that. You really do. We really do create our own reality. And the best way I describe that is, you know, when you're walking down the street, you can kind of almost tell how certain people's thought patterns are. You can see the emotion, their history, the weight of everything on their face, the way they stand. See the happy, alive, content people too, just the way they move. You know, it becomes embodied. But I recognize too that when I expected to find, you know, for example, when I went traveling when I was young, if I went out expecting to be mugged or to find unhelpful people, that whatever judgment insert there, that's what I would find. And if I went out instead curiously interested, open-minded, these are all humans, I'm going to meet some people who are just far too busy, won't have time for me, but I'm going to meet some really cool people too. Lo and behold, that's what I saw. You know, the whole what you focus on grows. And people talk, well, you can't create your reality, but I I think you can. The more I do this, the more I see it. The way you think about the world is the way that the world shows up for you or to you. Did we talk about that French writer, Anaïs Nin, who once said, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And that's how we create that. And if you think the world is fixed and this is the only way of living, that's what you get. But if you're at least open to the possibility of more, of being easy and actually fun, and that you can make the kind of difference that you want to make, and I think the world will show you how to do that. Like literally, you just pay attention and make forward motion in that, and it happens. It might not happen overnight, like a lottery, but you certainly can do it. And that's, I love that.
I think there's a. Would you like some water?
I'm empty. No, I'm good.
I think there's a, and to me, that's where the non-negotiable importance of gaining space from your mind comes in.
Yeah.
Because like the whole kind of you create your own reality. For me, for so long, my reality was my mind, and it was like I'm creating this monster, and I think so many people are not creating a monster, but so many people are so in their heads that like for example, earlier on, I've got a great example. Like I was walking my dog, and there's this man that I walk past maybe like once a week, and I've walked past him for like the last year, and he never smiles. His dog's like try and bite my ankles, and there's so many judgments about this man in my head, and every time I see him approaching, it flips my whole mood. My mind's judging the hell out of him, and I saw him today, and I noticed all these body reactions about this man approaching. I noticed the judgment, and I remember just being like, "Oh, that's just my mind." And instantly, it was like my mind didn't change. Like my mind was still perceiving the world in a certain way and telling me certain ideas, but because I could see it, and because I had space from it, it didn't infiltrate my experience of now. And I think, to me, that's like I don't comprehend how anybody can actually truly like change their life without some form of changing the relationship with their thoughts and their mind. Because like the change of reality thing, like when you have such habitual thinking about specific things, people, environments, that kind of, unless you're aware that that's not you, that is your reality. And I think it's that whole thing I think we talked about last time of like the whole kind of self-development space of a lot of it, and there's a place for all of it, but so much of it is working on like the surface level of the mind, of like change your thinking, change your thoughts, and like there's totally levels and space to it. But I think for true freedom, I think there has to be some form of opportunity for you to see that you're not your mind, because or else you're just like a puppet on strings, and it's also so much easier because like I have so many preconceived ideas and judgments about people, the world, as do we all, and to just like realize that like I don't have to try and change them in order to change my experience of living. And I think to me that's so freeing and effortless.
I think that's why ultimately I became a monk as well, because I realized how rotten my head could be, just how vicious and judgmental and expectant and all of that, how just horrible it was to other people and to myself. And I didn't like the fallout from that. I didn't like thinking that way. I judged myself pretty harshly for it. But I realized that was completely absent in other times of my life. When I was really truly present and mindful and filled with presence, and judgment, expectation, all that stuff, which just wasn't there. And that's again why I prioritized being a monk. Was really that is seeing what happened beyond the window of my beliefs and expectation and past experience. And I used to call it unplugging from the matrix, or cutting the chains. Just really, wow, my mind being pulled left, right, and center. I'm so attached to this person liking me, and I really don't want to see that person down. All the stuff was there. It was like, I just want to be done with that. And it was, like you're saying, it's amazing how you can be so free of that so easily, relatively quickly, with a little practice, a little willingness. It's boom, there you are.
And I think that's the relation too when it comes to like feeling overwhelmed. Like I think sometimes we can have patterns or tendencies that perhaps don't necessarily go away, or perhaps within a period of time they don't. And I think like there's almost this like, okay, like I remember maybe a year ago hearing that like overwhelm is trying to do more than one thing at a time. And I remember initially being like, wow, that's awesome, I just won't do that.
Yeah.
But I still was.
Oh yeah.
Because like it's like knowing, it's like reading you're not your thoughts. It's like initially it's quite soothing, but then you're lost again. And so I think that's the same thing with overwhelm, of like I can see personally patterns and tendencies of my mind like almost trying to do all the things at the same time at once, and that might not necessarily go away, it might not stop, but it's okay. It doesn't need to. It doesn't need to stop. And I think that was the end of that.
Momentum.
Yeah,
I likened it just a spinning top. Sometimes it has a bit more, it just has momentum of history. But leaving alone means it will settle pretty quick. I think that blows me away too, is starting on this journey wanting to fix myself. There were obvious flaws, and so it was almost like wanting to patch those holes, but also feeling like I needed to climb to a better state of being, a better person, a better human. So there was this double kind of pull of running away from trying to fix what I wasn't and get what I wanted to be. and it's an interesting, that happens, I think, but it happens because you become so accepting of who you are. It's almost like in the acceptance, the pure acceptance of who you are, then that chase to be different dies away, and then somehow life makes you the person you always were, could have been, but you were too busy looking for to be somebody else. That's a prime example. I would always look at somebody else, go, I want to be like them, or I want to be like her, or I want to take that from them. And the lack of comparison, the lack of trying to make myself into the way somebody else does things, and all the evaluation and self-management that goes with it, is like, when that kind of momentum, that kind of habit was brutal. And I'm sure led to a lot of constant thinking over breakfast, because really, if I'm honest, it probably wasn't my to-do list or what I had to do, but really how I wanted to fix myself today, or being this better person. And I often tell people about that. It's just make a to-do list, also make a to-be list. Recognize who you want to be, and I think that can really help, that kind of intentional approach. But I think the beauty of just being present is that acceptance and that settling of, there's nothing that I have to change. There was an old Zen master called Suzuki, I think, and he once said, you are perfect exactly as you are, and you could do with a little work, which I love, because it's so true. Those kind of the opposites.
And so gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just becomes obvious. Oh, okay. I see why I'm shouting at my kids here. All right, I can slow down because I don't want to do that. I can do that. You know, but it's not come with a whip of, oh, you're a fool, an idiot, and there you do it again. And it's like, all right, let's do better. But for now, let's enjoy this. Right.
Because you can never be enough.
Yeah.
You know, like there is, it's infinite. Like the things that you could have done or have been or have given more.
Yeah.
You know, like an example for me is analysing social situations.
Yeah.
Like constantly. Yeah. You know, like leave a room. Oh, that was a pleasant interaction. Driving home and it's like, oh, I'm now having a meltdown. You know, and constant analysing. Like somebody's reaction, what I said, did it come across that way?
Yeah. Did they look at me funny?
Yeah. And just how like it really doesn't matter what else I'm trying to say, like what else you could do in a situation. Like let's say all them things that you mind saying to do, okay, you do it next time. But then there's still more. There's still more. There's still more.
Yeah.
And to me that just it's again like don't play the game. Because you lose all the time.
It's a tough game, you know. We haven't really been taught to be content in our own skin.
No.
We're always sold, hey, buy this and you'll feel happy. Be like that and you'll feel happy. So since a little kid, I think, it's a wonder that anybody can walk on the earth without falling over from social anxiety. I'm not good enough. I was talking with a kayaker and he was world champion a few years ago. Like he's a really good kayaker. And we were just saying how it really doesn't matter what you achieve. It's never good enough. You look back and you won the gold, but could have done that better. And I forgot to do that. And I could it was like the high achievers among us are probably the worst. Who were so critical. We can't enjoy what we've done. Can't rest. Oh, that was tick that off. Because we're so focused on what, like you're saying, what we should have done, what we could have done. Yeah, it was funny. And keeps you, if you're in the right frame of mind, it keeps you improving, keeps you practicing, keeps you trying. But if you're in the wrong frame of mind, it means you're a loser, and what's the point? And there's no satisfaction to be found anywhere. Yeah.
I think that's the like that's probably the common assumption I think that you might I mean I'm assuming now that you might get is almost like you don't play in life, you don't participate, you don't strive to achieve or to experience more things, but like it really is like the place it comes from is so vastly different. And like I was reflecting myself because I've always been, I'd say, a high achiever and always had goals, and I think for the last, maybe since like November last year, I didn't have any goals. I stopped having a strict schedule. I felt like I just needed just to be free, and the other week, kind of suddenly I was actually, I'd quite like to, but the difference in the approach to almost like it's not I need to do this. It's not if I don't get this done, then I'm bad. It's like a curiosity and a want to see what I can experience, to see what I can do. And that to me has been huge because it's like, I think, you could probably assume if somebody's a monk and they're devoted to peace and they don't, like, they just forget the idea of possibility and improving and whatever. But I mean, obviously you can talk for yourself, but I think the place it comes from is so vastly different, and it gives it such a different flavor. Like when I kind of from for myself, when I've been working towards something, it's okay, yeah, like I might become a better person externally, I've achieved something different, but in that journey there's every day just self-beating with a stick, and because you've not done this, or you could have done that better, or whatever. Whereas to almost just be able to see it as like, I would like this if it happened, and to see what I can experience and explore. And I just think it's such a different approach. But it doesn't mean that you don't want things, that you don't strive for things. It's just a different. You've said the same thing 3 times, but
yeah, you're right though.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk about freedom, that's one of the things that at least I've seen, is freeing myself from the need to do things, because that's what used to drive me a lot. If I did this, that meant I was a valuable person, or people would respect me, or see me in a favorable light. Really had something to prove. But it led to such attachment to it working out. So, spirituality talk about attachment all the time, and it's not the desire that kills us, it's the attachment to the desire. And when you need something, because then people will think this about you. If you've got something to prove and something to hide, then there's always a chase, and nothing will be good enough, and you need it to happen this way, because then And coming from a place where you have nothing to prove, nothing to hide, everything becomes on the level of want. I'm really excited about this. And your heart's really in it. And you're playing the game that you want to play, as opposed to so often when we're chasing something or needing something, we're playing the wrong game. It becomes dissatisfying. I'm doing this because this is the only way I can gain approval or money or whatever. But yeah, I still want to make an impact on the world. I want to really help as many people as I can, because especially now there's so many people suffering, and maybe there's a lot of people too that are at that point that there must be something more. And those are the people I want to speak to. Gandhi, I love Gandhi, because he had like I said in my email the other week, he had a huge impact on 2 countries, on Pakistan and India, like millions and millions of people. And if he wanted to stop 2 cultures, 2 religions, 2 faiths from fighting, he'd just say stop. And they would. They respected him that much. And that blows me away, that such a spiritual man, and yet with such influence. And he was clearly guided by his conscience and his intuition and his spirit. But also he didn't just hide away and give that up. I think a big theme of his work and his message was responsibility. Was working for the betterment of a community. I'm sure he would agree, however that may look for you. It's not about being a communist and going to work in the fields because that's what someone told you to do. But I think the best kind of thing is to really get clear on what you want to do and the impact you want to make, and what kind of success, the person you want to be, back to the to-be list, and set about putting that into place. But again, there's that thing, and I'm exploring the limits of this, that life has to be a certain way. You need to do these things. And I'm not sure we need to do nearly as much as we think we need to do. It's a good exploration. So,
and I think that's what makes it so cool, is that the 2 aren't, like, it's not one or the other. Like, it's not, like, I had a bit of a moment the other day of kind of, it being kind of brewing of, like, I just need to give it my whole life.
Do that.
Like, if I'm going to be committed to this internal peace and stillness and silence, then I shouldn't be indulging in life and just all this mind's judgment. And I can see it now. But to just recognize that, like, people can look at you and, okay, he's a monk, and the assumption is perhaps that you're irresponsible, you're not engaged in life.
You've given up.
And your whole thing is, like, you are the most engaged person I know. And I think it doesn't need to be like you're either at peace, you're either peaceful, you're either content within, or you're out in the world. Like, the 2 can, and that comes back to what you're saying about the things we think that we like, how life has to look. Like, we've kind of made it black and white in our heads, probably, of you can't have both. what if you could? Why not?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I have been asked it many times by people to say, what if you could have both? Why not? What's stopping you? What's in your way?
Mm-hmm.
And so often when I've asked myself that question, I looked at it, it's just an idea that I can't, or an idea that I shouldn't, or an idea that it's not possible. And who knows? But if keeping the door of possibility firmly locked means I'll never try it, then maybe I can open it and just see what happens. And I love that approach of playing and treating it like a game, and as opposed to this is so serious and I need to get it right, perfect before I even attempt this or speak, which used to paralyze me. What's the right decision? And realizing there is no wrong decision. There's going to be consequences no matter what I do, but sitting on my ass, terrified about making the wrong decision or wanting to get it right so much I need to find the right decision, nothing happened from that. But going out and playing and exploring it, what if, that's exciting. Maybe that's why ultra running is so popular, because the numbers just get higher and higher. And I'm sure that's driven by, so you do 200 miles. Okay, how about 300?
It's the same. It's
stacking it up.
Yeah, it's what you said about like exploring the where that line is, the possibility of when you go beyond an idea or a concept or a doubt or like what is possible. And I think that's I was writing an email about the other day about I think that's the true kind of power of like the physical realm in terms of the physical realm, but like exercising and running, hiking, because like for them two things specifically, and anything I guess endurance based, where it's about how long and how far you can go. It is really all in your head. Like, of course, there's an element of physicality that you require for it to be somewhat like feasible, but for the most of us, we could go and run 50 miles right now, but the reason why we can't is because of that voice in our head. And I think that's the huge power, I think, in endurance-based events, is it's almost like a fast ticket to see what's stopping you and to see that you're in this thing that can keep going forever, practically. The only reason why you stop is because of the ideas in your head. And it's so, when you're doing an ultra run, it's so simple. It's either you carry on or you don't. Right. There's no other complexities to it. Of course there are, but like the premise comes down to you can either think about how to have a better time, how to solve it, or you can just one step. And I think that's the cool thing about, same with hiking. And when I did the 3 peaks with some of my clients the other month, it was like a 26-mile walk in the Yorkshire Dales. One lady called Shola, we were like an hour into the walk and she was kind of near in the back, and she rang her husband to say, you're going to have to come pick me up because I can't do it. And eventually, put the phone down, and then 20 minutes later we got to the top of the first peak, Whernside, and she had a text from her little boy saying like, go on mummy, you can do it. And we finished the walk like 13 hours later, and she finished. And she was saying like just that negative voice, and I think that's, to me, that's the fascination with ultrarunning, is that, and anything physical. And I think that's why it's really important, because it shows you so clearly that voice of I can't, but then also there's the edge of, you're like pushing the edge of what you think is possible, because okay, well I thought I couldn't, but I did. And then that instills the idea of, well, then there's more than my mind, there's more than the things that I tell myself. And to me, that's just super powerful. It's really cool.
That was one of my biggest jobs, I thought, as an outdoor instructor, was just helping people realize that they could take another step. They'd be sitting there screaming, I can't do this. And you go, just one paddle stroke, one step, whatever the case may be. And they do it. 99% of the time they did it, and they were just so happy, over the moon, because I could do it. I didn't think I could, but I did. So anything else?
I think that's a good chat.
Yeah, it's a good chat.
So I think, I guess maybe to finish off, how can you help people, Arjuna? How can you help the people?
Well, I've got a couple of books. I think it's probably the easiest way if people are interested. Then have a look at my books on Amazon. I'd love you to read them.
They're very good.
Yeah, I enjoyed writing them, but I wanted them to be one of them's called an instruction manual to live fully, and it's all about the power of your attitude, the power of possibility, the power of who we truly are. So yeah, have a look at the book or jump on my email list, arjunaishaya.com. Yeah.
You have a website.
I do.
It's very cool.
I know. Yeah. How about you?
I don't have a book or website.
Yeah.
But if you go on my Instagram, which will be linked below, there's some. Well, this is the worst sales pitch. If you go on my Instagram, there's some stuff you can press.
Well, let me do it for you, because my wife goes to your classes and she always puts the kids. No, she feeds the kids along with me, and then she goes, "I don't feel like going tonight," and I say, "Go along because you'll love it." And she goes along. She loves it. She comes back high as a kite. And I said, "How was it?" And she's, "Great. We did this hard workout. It was really spot on. I got all my energy, and we just laughed a lot. Group of women that just seemed to have a ball." And
amazing.
So, yeah. And you cultivate that. I mean, I've been to some classes where no one talks to you, and it's horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
Yeah. I think you're really good at making an awesome community. And you're taking everyone on a big walk, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I'm doing the Ennerdale Horseshoe, which is a 20-mile in the lakes, 20-mile loop in the lakes, up some mountains on the 1st of July. There's maybe 3 or 4 spots left if anybody would like to join. Yeah, it'd be amazing. That whole overcoming the voice thing, I think, it's a great way to see it.
If you do it, you'll meet my wife.
Uh-huh.
I'll be at home looking after the kids. She said to me, "Why don't you come along?" And I'm like, "There's no way you want us 3 along the night before."
What, you and the kids?
Yeah. We could get a B&B. I'm like, "No, you don't want that." She goes, "Yeah, good point." No. You want peace and calm and good night's sleep beforehand, and then a nice beer and a hot bath afterwards.
Yeah.
She said, "Yeah, good point."
Nice idea there.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, it's awesome chatting with you.
And you. Thanks for the chat.
We should do it again soon.
We shall. We should.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.